So it's currently 4:18 a.m. and I just got done watching this movie. I was scrolling through Apple TV, seeing if there was anything to watch because usually I don't watch anything on the Apple TV subscription service that they implemented last year, I think. In When I saw this movie, I was like, well, when I saw the preview of it, like whenever you click over it, I was like, I don't know if this is going to interest me, but it seems pretty cool. I don't know anything about it. I never even heard of it. So I was like, this kind of looks like a slice of life or a coming of age movie, where they tell the stories about a family hanging together and, just going through life and struggling through certain problems and issues. But this movie was definitely, personally, I enjoyed it. I cried a lot. There were a lot of emotional moments in this movie that were really impactful. I think all the actors were great. The main character, Ruby, and just her whole family in general. And I really love the dynamic between everybody and all their characters. I love the whole, I guess the whole premise of the story and how it kind of resolved, but the problems and issues that you see with certain families and the things that this particular family is dealing with. And I'm not going to get into spoilers right now. I'll let you know before I get into spoiler territory. But yeah, I've never heard of this movie. I don't know when it came out. I think it's freshly new, maybe a couple of days ago. So I'm actually glad that I watched this. I did not expect to be this emotional over this movie. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to sleep unless I talk about it. There's just so much on my mind. And, not everyone's going to enjoy this movie. There's a movie for everybody. And then some movies are not for everybody, right? Like you have particular things that you enjoy and that you don't. But basically the premise of this, I'm pretty sure the trailer probably shows something about what the movie is about. But like I said, I didn't see any trailers or anything. I saw the preview, like not a trailer, but a preview. When you hover over a screen, it kind of shows like pictures sliding and what's going on, but it has no like audio. And then I was like, I'm just going to give it a try, right? It looks kind of like an indie movie, and usually like these type of movies tend to be good a lot of the times. So I gave it a chance, and I'm glad that I did. So in particular, it takes part with a family of 4, and everyone in this family is basically deaf. They're not, capable of being able to hear, except for the daughter. She was the only one that came out different than her parents and her brother. So you can already imagine sort of the problems that she may have and the family may have, since she's the only one that's able to talk and hear. And it's not that they can't talk, but like if you can't hear anything, if you never heard words before, it's sort of harder to put it into perception of how to speak. But the movie basically revolves around this family, Ruby, and her family. And she's kind of like, you're seeing the things that she's had to go through while trying to balance her life, but at the same time trying, like her personal life, but at the same time trying to be a part and be there for her family that needs her, because she's basically their interpreter for everything. And it's almost like you're seeing the struggles of how she was sort of forced to grow up, and she had to make a lot of hard decisions as she was growing up from being a kid, the moment that she was able to speak. And she basically did everything for her family in a way that she put them first before her needs. And even though there's a lot of conflict back and forth between this in her, like in herself, knowing, like wanting to do something, but not being able to do it simply because she has to be there for her family because, of their disabilities. So she feels like she needs to be there because that's the only reason that, they're okay or whatever. Like she just feels guilty because they've been obviously together for so long, but it revolves around each of their stories and how they sort of see one another's perspectives, right? Like you see it from her parents' side of like you see her mom act a certain way, you see her father act a certain way, and they're thinking about it from their perspective. And then you see the daughter Ruby, and she's thinking about it from her perspective, but she also has the burden of thinking about it from her parents' perspective. And a lot of the time during this movie, it seems almost like the parents are not really paying attention to her daughter's needs until like the very last half of the movie, where her dad kind of a little bit starts noticing certain stuff. Without getting into spoilers, I'll talk about it in a minute. But it's just going through life and the struggles that they go through, and you know, the financial issues that a lot of people have. And especially when you're in a situation like this where you're not able to communicate your feelings and your emotions and have conversations with other people that don't know sign language, but you're not able to speak your voice. And if you don't have like an interpreter next to you, it's going to be hard to communicate. And that's where her daughter was to them the whole time since she was a little kid growing up. And you go through this family, seeing them struggle through the ups and downs. And especially like the main protagonist of this movie is Ruby, and you're seeing her struggle wanting to do what she wants to do in life, but at the same time she doesn't see it as a burden trying to be there for her family, but it is conflicting with the things that she wants to do that she enjoys outside of her family. And it's kind of a hard thing to balance between being there for them but also satisfying her own needs in order to make herself happy when it comes to certain things that she likes to do. So she enjoys singing, and this is something that she's very passionate about. And the one thing that she loves, basically her parents, like they're not able to hear what she's singing. So it's kind of like, so she loves something that they're never going to be able to appreciate, is what it's like the beginning of the movie sort of shows. And I hope this is not spoiling. I hope that the trailer showed some of this or not. But like I said, like she's passionate for music. She wants to follow her passion. She wants to follow her dreams, but she's the only one that's able to hear and talk. And, you know, her family isn't. Her brother Leo and her parents, you know, they were all born deaf. So they just have a conflict with one another when they argue. What I do love is the dynamic between the family, right? They're very, like the jokes on here were pretty funny when, you know, not much was being said, but when they do sign language and then you have like the subtitles and they're showing what they're saying. Like this movie made me want to learn sign language. I've seen TV shows like Switch at Birth, and there was another one that I seen a long time ago that had a lot of sign language on it, and I've always wanted to learn, and it's probably something that I will one day get into like learning. But they do a really good job of having that emotion without ever saying anything with words, but showing it through body language. And, you know, obviously sign language is a language. So it was really beautiful. Like there was moments in the movie that my heart just dropped and I started like tearing so bad. I think I cried like 3 times. But then again, I'm an emotional person. So yeah, there's like, you're seeing this family struggle through their own problems like every family does, right? Like you also notice that she's going through this, she's in a small town and a lot of people are bullying her because she's known as like the deaf person because her family's like that. And she's kind of dealt with this her whole life and being used to like people always having the attention on her and making fun of her or bullying her because of the situation, which is pretty messed up if I'm being like completely honest, right? Like just bullying her for these reasons that just is very disrespectful. But then again, you're like, she's in high school, right? This is her last year. She's going to go into college. She wants to go into college, but you know, this is the conflict that she has with her parents and not understanding. Overall, the music was amazing. I thought she had a lovely voice. You know, she's trying to balance with her confidence, not having confidence enough in herself and her singing abilities because like it's something that she's done that she's passionate about, but she's never really tried to go after it. But I don't know, pretty much everything, like without, like, I'm going to get into spoilers that way I can talk a little bit more about it. But the music was good. It wasn't like a full out musical, but you know, it did have a lot of singing, her practicing for the choir that she had joined, which pretty sure. Hopefully, it shows in the trailer. If not, rip. But yeah, like I said, the best way without spoiling anything that I can say is just that, you know, going through life, trying to carry your burdens while trying to be there for your family and to carry their burdens at the same time, and trying to make it all happen, right? Like, she was very grown for her age. Like, everything that she had to do from this, that, like, she had a lot of things on her plate, and it was just hard to balance everything. And she kept getting, like, just tired out and burned out. And she was just conflicted because on one side, she cares about her family and she wants the best for them. But then on the other side, she wants what's best for her, and she wants to be able to grow into the person that she wants to be in things like that. But it's kind of hard to do that when her parents have relied on her for so long, and she's been there with them for so long whenever they needed her to interpret things and stuff. But yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I definitely recommend that you watch it. You know, I think that it was a really wonderful, unexpected, lovely movie. I love the music. I love the actors. They were great. Even at times when there were certain scenes where nothing was being said at all, and you hear it from the perspective of how they see things because they're not able to hear, it was really impactful and really emotional. So I definitely recommend that you watch this, get some tissues if you're as sensitive as I am. But it was a good time. Yeah, I'm going to get into spoilers. But you go through, like, at the beginning of the movie, you go through Ruby's perspective and her brother Leo. Like, even at the beginning, she's singing. I was like, oh, you know, she has a pretty cool voice. But just speaking about her music stuff, she's kind of dealing with insecurities of wanting, like, she does this fake voice when she sings. She's like so insecure because she used to have like this funny way of talking that she considered to be ugly, that growing up, she tried to make her voice sound like a girl when she sang. So every time she tries to do this soft, really girly singing voice, she really wasn't singing at herself. And I didn't even like when she was singing that way. I was like, I don't know, it seems like something's off. But, you know, I guess, you know, it's just part of the movie. They don't have to all be great at singing. But then when she goes to like school in the choir and the music teacher, you know, tells her why she not being free and singing, like, because like these teachers can tell whenever you're tight and you're not like basically loose in every shape or form, like in your vocal cords and stuff. And once she lets go and starts singing in her like natural voice, which was a little deeper than, you know, her trying to be all girly voice, like she had a beautiful voice. Even at like the very end, I love her voice at the very end when she was auditioning to go to this college for music. So it was really impactful because you get to see her go from not being confident and thinking that she sounds a certain way or she sounds better a certain way, even though when she starts singing by not paying attention, she sings in her actual true natural self. But she's so insecure, especially around other kids because they have bullied her whole life, that it's just something that she hasn't been able to deal with. And the music teacher, I thought was amazing, helped her a lot to be her mentor and guide her through a lot of things and help her push out of her shell in a certain way to where she can express herself by singing. And he saw potential in her, and he knew that she was very good at singing and she had talent. But yet at the same time, she doesn't want to go to college because she has to be there for her parents. So you're kind of having this battle between, like, an emotional battle within her, that she's kind of conflicted. Like, she wants to do her own thing. She wants to go to college. She wants to go practice for the musical that's like the play that they're going to have. And then for a rehearsal that her music teacher's teaching her so she can be prepared and try to audition to be able to go to college and get a scholarship. because she's not going to be able to afford it because they're having financial issues and stuff like that. And another thing that that really hit hard in this movie was that seeing the struggles that this family had whenever it came to financial issues, and it sort of sucks seeing people struggle because in the reality of things, you put yourself in that perspective, and a lot of us have been in that situation or are still in that situation, to where any little bump in the road is going to set you back a lot. Like, you don't have the ability to be able to save money in certain situations because of certain circumstances that may happen. Maybe you'll have time to be able to do that years down the road, but if things keep setting you back and back, it's almost impossible to do if you're so far behind. And this is kind of what happens to the family, like from the middle, that they're struggling and kind of getting ripped off and stuff like that. And yet this is something that Ruby ends up dealing with as well, because she's seeing her parents struggle financially. Yet she's trying to be in school. She's trying to be better at singing and show her voice and follow her path and try to get a scholarship and go to college, while at the same time working and trying to worry about her financial issues with her parents, while also being an interpreter with her parents. So, she wakes up really early to go to school. First she wakes up really early to wake her parents up and her brother. And then they go to work, to go fishing. And then she gets out of work and then she goes to school. Then out of school, she goes to rehearsal to go practice. And then out of practice, she goes back to work. And it's just this whole thing that she has so much to do that it's just insane how powerful she is. And I think she did a really great job. The actress, I've never heard of her and never seen her in anything that I know of. But I think she did a really great job, and I basically loved everybody in this movie. So one thing that, like, every time that she sung, I really loved, like, when she actually sung in her deeper voice. It just reminded me, like, it brought memories back from Glee. I used to remember when I used to watch Glee a long time ago when it was airing on TV. I was like, man, I wish I could sing. Like, I would sing in school. I don't give a fuck. Like, I would sing in school if I knew how to sing. Like, something about singing, just the vibes of being able to know how to sing, and then watching musicals, knowing that they're around other people and they're singing, makes me happy. I don't know what it is, but man, like, I was happy every time, like, I heard songs. My heart was just like filled with butterflies or whatever. But maybe that's kind of cheesy, whatever. But that's just kind of how I felt. So along her journey, though, she has this crush on a guy from the very beginning, but along her journey, this guy is in a choir that she purposely joined at the very beginning. I know I'm skipping around everywhere, but I'm just, like, speaking as I go and remembering the parts that I want to talk about the most. But she ended up joining the choir because she likes this guy, but she's also passionate about singing too. So this guy that she has a crush on, they end up being together at the very end, and I think their dynamic duo was pretty good. He ends up auditioning for college as well, but doesn't end up making it. He kind of didn't do well in his performance as she did, and she got accepted at the very end, which, it was a happy ending. Everyone got what they wanted. Like, she got the guy, he got the girl, she got into college, her parents were happy, and they got an interpreter and just stuff like that all around. But there were a lot of powerful moments that I want to touch on real quick that were the reason why I wanted to make it like I guess not a review, but a review, because I know I'm not going to be able to sleep with these on my mind. I think the first scene, the thing that hit me a lot the most with this movie is because her brother Leo was, like, always protecting Ruby, and he's the older brother. And he always, like, at first I thought he just wanted what was best for Ruby, because he wanted her to be happy and stop, like, not make her parents rely on her so much. And he wanted her to live her own life. And yet you end up realizing that that's some of the truth, but as well, Leo kind of felt like he was a useless brother because he was the oldest, and they treat him like a baby, like his parents treat him like a kid. And Ruby has all these responsibilities, and it kind of weighs heavily on Leo, seeing that his little sister is kind of carrying all this weight, not being able to pursue her passion because she's constantly trying to be there for her family. She's constantly trying to do the right thing for her family, at the expense of herself, right? Like whether it's mentally, physically, emotionally, no matter what it is, she's sacrificing everything that she wants to do in order to do the things that her family wants to do or wants her to do, right? Like even her mom is against her singing. Her dad doesn't really care too much. He doesn't say like meh or anything. They're just not able to hear. So it's like her mom thinks it's kind of a rebellious stage to where she just wants to sing because they're not able to hear. So you only love the thing that we're not capable of knowing or understanding. But that scene where she had a conversation with her brother was very powerful for me. Like I felt that emotion to where he wants to be the bigger brother. He wants to protect the family. He says he makes a lot of good points to where it's like, we're not always going to have you around. You're going to have to live your life. You know, we're going to have to learn how to live without you. And it's like, we have to learn how to get by on our own. It's like, we can't just depend on you for the rest of our lives. And, you know, I'm the big brother. I'm supposed to be here helping. And like, he just felt like he wasn't doing his part. And he felt like his parents put all the burden on her. So he was upset at that, but he was also upset that his parents weren't relying on him because he feels that he's capable of being able to do the things that Ruby's doing. Because it's a disability is not a limitation on the things that they're capable, you know. So that was a very powerful scene for me. Like that was one of the first scenes that I cried in, at least that I can remember right now. Maybe I'll go back in my mind and I remember something else. So the next one hit me even harder, and the last one hit me the hardest. But the second part where I cried that hit me the harder than the first one with the brother scene is when she finally goes to the school play or whatever, the choir that they're having. And, you know, her parents are there supporting her. Her family's there supporting her. None of them are able to hear, right? So she's doing like this play, and she was chosen to do a duet with the guy that she has a crush with. And she ends up doing this duet with him. But first they do this whole musical as a whole school or the whole choir or whatever. And then it's time for the second song, right? Like you have one song, then you have another song. Once it comes up to the duet song to where it's her and the guy, his name is Miles. Once it comes up to them to sing, it's like before that, you realize that her parents are like, her mom is just saying that, oh, look, she's singing, you know, but she doesn't really understand that she's actually good because her mom still doesn't believe that Ruby's talented at singing. She just wants to say, oh, you know, good for her. You know, she's doing something that she loves, even if she's not good at it. Like her mom didn't want to believe it. And her father kind of had this thought within him saying that, yeah. I mean, he was kind of like conflicted. Like, is she good? Is she not? Like, I can't hear. I don't know. But the mom was just kind of like, oh, yeah, she's good. Like doing a finger sign, like pretending that she's, you know, not good. So whenever the duet starts happening, whenever Miles and Ruby start singing, the dad, like the mom is just, you know, being very hypocritical. Like you can tell from her facial expressions, but the dad, this is what hit me. The dad started really focusing and he started looking around the audience and he started seeing like people's faces and expressions and emotions. And then all of a sudden the sound just mutes. Like you don't hear anything. So you're hearing it, you're seeing basically from the perspective of the father now. And he's looking around, watching his daughter sing while looking at the crowd and how they're reacting. He sees a lady in tears. He sees another lady that's looking down, like, you know, because it was like a sad song. Like he's trying to understand why people are sad. Is it bad? Is she good? Is she reaching people's hearts? And he ends up realizing that she's touching people's hearts. And he starts getting curious. And it's like he tries to hear, but no matter how hard he tries, he's not able to hear. And he looks around, and when people start clapping and people are emotional, he looks at that and he looks at his daughter, and he has like this vision in his mind. And then once they get home, everyone goes inside, you know, coming home from the play. And his father's like, I need some air. So he sits on a truck, and his daughter Ruby comes and says, you know, what's wrong? What's on your mind? And this scene is very powerful because her dad asks Ruby to sing. Like first he says like, what was that song about? And Ruby explains to him what the song was about, you know, needing someone, like what it means to like love someone and stuff like that. And her dad asked her to sing, like, can you please sing me the song? And she starts singing the song to him. And he starts putting his hand on her neck, trying to feel like the vibrations in her like vocal cords and stuff. And he stares at her and like starts touching her face and everything so he can feel the vibration from her singing and everything. And the daughter starts dripping tears and I start crying, and I'm like, he's really trying to focus and understand what she's saying and what she's singing, and like reading her facial expressions, feeling her, you know, her neck and whatever, like. And when she's done singing the song, you know, they end up hugging, and he has tears in his eyes. She has tears in his eyes. That was like very powerful for me. Like it was, you have to, like, I already, like I spoiled it. I feel like it's not as impactful if you went on it blind, but if you've seen this movie and you know what I'm talking about, that scene got me really bad. And then I want to say that's like, man, I will take it back though. This is the scene that, you know, got me the most. You know, her father finally realizing that, you know, her daughter is talented and this is what she loves to do as well, and this is what she's passionate about. Like all this time they've been forcing her daughter to, or putting the burden on her to be grown from the very start, to do things because they weren't capable of doing them. And they relied on her so much that she kind of lost a little bit of freedom as she was growing up. And the one thing that she's passionate about, that she loves to do, and her parents aren't able to understand that. They're not able to hear that. Like you see all these conflicting fights, conversations, sign language, like the emotional expressions that they make whenever she's passionate about her music, and when they want her to stay at home and help them work to be able to make money and, you know, start this business together and be their interpreter for her. And she has to like not do things in her life that she wants to do for herself, but what she has to do for her family. And it sort of sucks because when you see it from both perspectives, like, you can say that, you know, especially the mom, I feel like, but you can say that the parents are a little messed up because they sort of relied on her so much. And it's like, oh no, you can't go to college because we want you here, you know, how you're going to help us with the business and stuff like this. And they weren't able to give her her freedom that she wanted to make the choice. And eventually, like, it just sucked because she was so kind, like Ruby, that she was willing to just lie and be like, yo, I'm happy here. You know, yeah, of course I hope you're around. And that's not really what she wanted. So it just very overall emotion feels all over the place for me. So at the end, I feel like everyone finally got together. Like once that scene happens with her dad and Ruby, he finally understands. And then the next morning, because she was supposed to have an audition to be able to try out to be going to college if she got accepted with the scholarship, but she wasn't going to go. She made the choice to stay home with her family and help them with the business so they can be financially, you know, stable or at least make it. But her dad realizes, right, like this is a big mistake. He doesn't tell her, but he wakes her up in the morning, takes her to that audition with her whole family, and the whole family goes. And she, you know, she's like 30 minutes late to this audition. And the music teacher's a badass. Like he comes in whenever she's going to audition, because it's kind of like a private audition, right? You have the three people, the judges, then you have the person playing the piano, and then you have her, Ruby. And then all of a sudden you see the teacher coming, yo, can I be his, I don't know what they call it, I'm just gonna say pianoist. And he starts playing the piano for her, you know? And Ruby gets off to a rough start. Like she's singing in her girly voice again. She's not singing in her true voice because she's nervous and a little bit insecure. So the music teacher kind of takes one for her. He pretends to mess up on a keynote. He's like, oh, my bad. Let's start over from the beginning. And like Ruby takes the hint And then she ends up seeing her family because, like I said, it's a private audition thing, but her family ended up sneaking up. It's like one of those opera theaters where you can kind of sit on the very top, but they ended up sneaking in, and she sees them and she feels a little bit more comfortable, and she starts singing in her natural voice. And then like halfway through the song, she starts doing sign language while singing. And like, it just gets really impactful, really powerful. And her voice was really beautiful in this scene. Like, I really loved it. So, she ended up getting the scholarship and going to college, right? Like the movie ends when she gets accepted, and you just see her driving to go to college, or being taken to go to college. I mean, it was like this movie. I loved it. I don't know. I just loved it. So many powerful scenes, so many like impactful dialogues, and the characters themselves, right? They had so much depth into them, right? Like, they weren't perfect. And what I mean by perfect is like, they were flawed human beings that would be out there in reality. There's some shitty parents that make mistakes. They're not bad people, but sometimes everyone has a different perspective on certain things. And it's like, they really weren't looking at it from their daughter's perspective. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of work, obviously, or just some kind of luck to notice that what you're doing isn't right. But overall, this I'm glad I watched this. I didn't think I was going to cry. I wasn't expecting to cry. Like, I thought it was just going to be like a happy movie. And it was happy, right? There was a lot of like sad moments, a lot of things here and there in between that I didn't cover and I didn't talk about. I don't want to like make a whole conversation about the whole movie, but just talking about particularly certain parts that I really admired and I really love. Like I said, that scene wherever she was singing in the school and you see it from the dad's perspective, like that was very powerful for me. And even like when they got home was one of my favorite scenes, and she starts singing to him and he finally understands that, this is what his daughter was meant to do. Like, that was powerful. Like, just every character here has a purpose, the brother Leo, from wanting to be seen as a man, to be the protector of his family because he's the oldest, to Ruby trying to balance everything from being a teenager to being in love to being like passionate about music to wanting to be able to enjoy her life with her friend and go to college, but also at the same time being an interpreter and doing things for her family, running the family business with them, and it just everything in general. And then from her parents trying to struggle with the financial issues that they're struggling at home, and Ruby's the only one that's able to hear. It's just all around, like, all these characters have depth to them and personality, and they feel so realistic. Like, you understand, you understand every character's perspective, even if you don't agree with them, even if you think what they're doing is wrong, but it's like you sort of understand their point of view. Like, a lot of us get clouded by the things that we do, that things that we see sometimes, and we're not able to actually focus on what's in front of us and be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. But I feel like Ruby was the only character that was able to put herself in other people's shoes, right? Because she's been doing it since she was a kid. Like I said, she was forced to grow up and learn a lot of these issues and learn a lot of these things growing up, because like I said, she just had to grow up fast to be able to order beer for her parents when she was 5, right? Like, what kind of kid has to do that? It's just a lot of depth to all these characters in general. And also, it has like its funny moments. There's a lot of, comedy here. It's not like with voice, right? Like sign language. I love how close the family is and how funny they are and stuff like that. There's a lot of good jokes here personally, right? It's all subjective. There are some corny stuff that happens and some corny stuff that's being said. I feel like the love interest, it served a purpose and it wasn't a bad thing in the movie, but it wasn't like the main focus, right? You just got to see the perspective of this 4 family, but mainly Ruby, but you're seeing the struggles that they're going through with life, with what they're dealing with, each as individuals and how they perceive one another. And, it's just a family having these conversations, a family going through life, a family going through struggles, and a family trying to balance everything else just like other families would, right? And obviously they're not able to hear, and Ruby's the only one. But I love this movie. I don't know. I can't say it enough. I loved it. I give no ratings to movies, right? Like, I'm not going to rate it and say, oh, look, it's a 10 out of 10 or something. But I loved it. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I did not have a good time crying, but I couldn't help myself. And yeah, but that's really all I have to say. So I'm glad I watched it. Hopefully I can watch something. I feel like I want to go on this journey and just watch stuff that's going to make me cry. Like, I don't know what it is. I just want to find other stuff like this. So phenomenal job on all the actors, the directors, and everyone. Well done on this one. Like, damn, that's all I got to say. But hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did, or at least thought it was okay. And yeah, that's all I have to say. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your night or day. And I'll talk to you on the next one. So be safe.